and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is sight and what's happening when we have perception that doesn't match consensus reality in big air quotes. And how do we square that with what's real in our experience? And I think it'll be an interesting conversation because it steps into the unknown a bit. So we'll see what happens. But before we get started, let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any negativity, stress, tension, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your electrons, all your cells, all your molecules, and creating this brilliant glow from the inside out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, to experience these remarkable bodies and appreciate that through this physical vehicle, we are able to experience life. And bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is a particular, good morning, Rosalind, welcome back. So good to have you here with us. So, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're talking today about sight. And this topic is prompted by a very, very strange experience I had last night, which is somewhat similar to some other experiences I've had, but it was even more pronounced and extreme. So I was not able to get to sleep last night. I was laying in bed and I had my eyes closed and I started seeing all this energy moving. I'm calling it energy because I don't know what it was, but sometimes these things have a feeling of living creature kind of things. Good morning, Robin. Welcome. It's so good to have you joining us. We're talking about sight. So last night it was maybe 1 or 1:30, maybe even 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was laying there and all this stuff was happening with my eyes closed. All this energy moving, shapes and patterns and lots of activity. It was very, very, very alive. And it started out, I don't know if it started out with these blue or red shapes, but there was red, there was blue, and then there were like all these patterns and things that were not particularly decipherable, not regular in any way that I could identify. And then I opened my eyes and I was still seeing all this energy. And there were these, you know how when you play with and Robin says I was awake around that time. So who knows, maybe there was something going on in a big way. I don't know. But you know how when you play with a magnet and metal particles and you get these like spikes, lines of spikes. Anyway, there was all this energy, these spikes everywhere, interconnecting. And I was watching this and it's almost like there was a blanket of it. They were blue and there were these matrices, again, not in any kind of regular pattern, but they were all moving and there was all this activity and it was like there was a blanket of it and it was several feet above me and it had dimension, it was big. It probably filled the room, but it also had depth to it and I could see into the depth of it. And now I'm not a person who typically, like I don't typically have great success visualizing stuff. Like when I try to think of something in my mind, the way that I'm able to experience it is kind of through language rather than through visual recognition. Good morning, Lisa. Maggie says hi too. So good to have you with us. So we're talking about vision and this weird experience I had last night. So I opened my eyes and I was fully awake and I was watching this for a while. And then I thought, okay, there's all this energy, all these spikes and connecting lines that are, it's kind of like if you ever did animation, what they do is some of the things in Photoshop, they create a matrix that has all kinds of angles out into all different directions, like a network that has different focal points that you can move and whatever. Well, anyway, it was kind of like that, but it was light, and it started out blue and then it became more of a whitish, goldish light. Anyway, so I thought, okay, this is really interesting. I wonder what's going on with this. I looked around and it was still there everywhere. And it was, it was perpetual. And I thought, okay, I wonder what my body looks like in this. So I pulled my hand out from under the covers and I started looking at my hand. And there were all these spiky energies coming off my hand that were connecting into this matrix. And as I moved my hand, the matrices or the energy lines moved when I moved my hand. And Ryan says, can you help me by trying to contact the energy of my best friend, Nick Garris? It would mean everything to me. Ryan, I so appreciate your request. And I have to tell you, I'm not a medium. Oh, well, okay. So maybe we're all mediums, but I don't have communication with people that have passed, except on rare occasion. I've had those situations, but not for other people, not being able to convey messages. Who knows what's going to happen? I was laying there last night with all this weird, wild, amazing, beautiful energy stuff happening. And I was thinking, well, is my vision opening? I don't know. I don't think so, Ryan, any more than anybody else who lives in our culture, but hey, whatever. And that's a bizarro comment. Anyway, let's take a look at what this could be. Anyway, I was looking at my hands and I was moving my hands and I was noticing there weren't trails or anything happening from my hands, but there was this energy that kind of was connected to my fingers, that was connected to the whole net. And what it brought to mind for me was the idea of we're in this energy matrix all the time. And then when we make an action, it has impact, like the flapping of a butterfly's wings impacting another side of the world, for example. And so it was fascinating. I was fascinated. And it made me think, well, what's real and what's not real? Because I watched this for quite some time before I was able to just close my eyes and go to sleep. The thing is that I've often experienced this energy kind of thing, not to this degree, where I would see movement of energy and colors and patterns and whatever with my eyes closed. And then when I opened my eyes, those things were still going on. Now, this has always occurred at night. So this morning when I woke up, I was trying to, or I was allowing myself to observe whether I was able to access these visuals again. And I haven't in the same way. The other thing that's really interesting is that when I've meditated, I often see patterns of energy, like light moving, almost like in a lava lamp, you know, but it would move and repeat and move and repeat the same pattern. And I figure that that's a way that I'm downloading energy or downloading information, you know, as light. You know, we hear about people that talk light language, and they they're speaking this light language. I was thinking, well, maybe this experience is light that is moving through. So Lisa is replying to Ryan, who made the request. Lisa says, the bell is thin right now. Meditate and set your intentions and talk. You can also set intentions and write a letter. When I do this, my mom comes through, and when I look, I've been writing in my mom's handwriting, and she's communicating with me. Lisa, that's such an amazing, amazing thing that you do. And thank you for responding so generously to Ryan. Rosalind says it would be cool if it could be recreated. Yeah, so the weird thing is that it had happened, you know, it happened. And I know that I have access to this movement of light because it's happened so often in my meditation. And I've had these pattern things happen before, but they don't seem to be things that I can necessarily consciously create or even sink into, you know, like to just allow the presence, to allow my eyes to relax without expectation, to just see. What I noticed is that as I calmed myself, more of these patterns were able to emerge. And it was really quite remarkable. And so it made me think about this whole notion of vision. And, you know, so many of us have unusual, let's say, non-consensus reality types of experiences with vision. Some of us see energy or auras or spirits or patterns, and maybe you've seen unidentified flying objects. They're calling them something else now. Instead of UFOs, they're calling them unidentified aerial phenomenon. So UAP is what they're calling them now instead of UFOs. But that there maybe you've had these experiences where Maggie's dropping things off the shelves again. What is it about those experiences, and how does that kind of experience impact our notion of what's real, what's reality, and what isn't? You know, so how about people who have hallucinations? Are those hallucinations tapping into another dimension of reality? How about people who see the future or see things in past lives? And I mean visuals. I mean, we were doing, I was with a group of women, we were doing a meditation, and I wasn't visualizing anything that was in. Good morning, Dennis. It's been a while. So good to have you back. Maggie's off stage terrorizing my shelves, knocking things over. She likes gravity and likes experimenting with it. Anyway, and I think she likes, that was a big piece of coral. She, I think she's pleased with herself. She's squawking about it. Anyway, I wonder how do these experiences of visual phenomenon affect our experience of reality or our interpretation of reality? You know, like what's real and what's not real. And Maggie likes to be center stage. um, so I wonder for you if you've had any of these experiences. I know that something happened. It happened for an extended period of time. It's not entirely inconsistent with other experiences I've had. And I don't know what it is that I was tapping into. I think maybe another dimension of experience. Lisa says, I see cartoon blips over my head when someone is sick or dying. I hear song lyrics and I get smells. That is so wild. Cartoon blips. That's really interesting. And song lyrics and smells. I've gotten song lyrics too, and once or twice in my life I've gotten smells. I got a smell. I'm sure it was a visitation by my grandfather, because that smell was unique to his cologne. I don't know what his cologne is. I wouldn't know where to find it. And I was in a room by myself, and it was during the day, and nobody else was around. And I was looking at a book that he had given me. And all of a sudden I smelled his cologne, and I said hello to him and thanked him. And then he left, and the smell passed with it. So, and song lyrics a lot. Like I'll wake up for days with song lyrics in my head. But what is that? What is that? These are maybe winks from the universe. What is all this stuff? I mean, I don't know what it is. I have experiences with it periodically, but it's like, what is it? And how do we integrate it? What do we make it mean? I figure for me, what I'm making it mean is that somehow my perception is being expanded, or my awareness of my perception is being expanded. Lisa says, my grandfather smoked Kent cigarettes. They're very distinct. That was my first smell. I believe it's our guides sending us messages. It could be our guides. It could be those energies too. It could be our greater self. It could be, who maybe it's, I don't know. I think that this allows us, because we tend to believe that what we see is true. Seeing is believing. I'll believe it when I see it with my own eyes. And so what happens when we see these weird things with our own eyes? We look for a story, an explanation that makes some kind of sense to us, right? We look to try and explain it. And how, maybe it's guides that are sending us messages. Maybe our guides are part of our higher self or our expanded self. Maybe I don't know. I really do live more and more in the world of hypotheses, like to just be living with working hypotheses. I do believe that as we let go of our preconceptions, that we have greater access to what's truly there. As we release our ideas about things, as we release our beliefs, I guess, even, then we have a greater ability. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of something that was being pinging. As we release our ideas about how things are, I believe we have access to a greater access to how things are. That it's our thought constructs that we try and put everything into these boxes of understanding that limit our understanding, actually, that limit our experience, because I think it's probably more true that you need to believe it before you see it. And when we expand on that, maybe you need to leave room for new perceptions, like I believe that everything is energy. So maybe that is giving space for me to perceive energy, but that belief might even be limiting what I'm capable of perceiving. So, it was interesting because some of the motion before the spiky stuff, it was almost like molecular movement, almost like cellular movement that you might see under a microscope. It felt like that, with all the activity that you see, for instance, in water under a microscope. So Lisa, when you believe it's our guide sending us messages, part of that is there's a belief in guides, and maybe you've had experiences directly that make you believe that these are individuated consciousness. Maybe it's that the guides are a structure for you to be able to receive information. Rosalind, I don't mean to necessarily, I'm not challenging your experience. I'm just saying that maybe our experiences are constrained by our method, our channels through which we can accept information, right? So maybe that information is taking the form of guides because that is something that can be integrated well. Like for me, for whatever reason, me believing that everything's energy, maybe that's why things are showing up as energy. And I'm trusting that somehow whatever that energy is doing, if it's communicating information, that I'm receiving that I'm absorbing that somehow. Rosalind says, I keep hearing people saying the veil is thinning. Yes, and Lisa just said it, and I hear that as well, and I believe that as well. That we're coming to a place of richer awareness, richer awakening, and that's my belief, right? Again, I think that we are able to perceive things, that we're able to have space to perceive. So I've told this story multiple times. It cracks me up, but it's talking about perception. So years and years ago, I was learning how to do muscle testing, and I was asking yes and no questions and able to get answers by, pulling on someone's wrists and seeing, the tension in their arms, whatever. And I was so excited about this, and I demonstrated it to my father. My father was a veterinarian and kind of considered himself to be a man of science and very pragmatic. And I showed him muscle testing and got these yes and no answers. And he literally pulled his arms away from me. And he said, you can't tell me that you can talk to my body. And I said, you just experienced it. You just witnessed it. Are you telling me that your beliefs are so powerful and are so threatened by this that you're going to deny your very own experience? And he said, yep. And I thought, like that was such an amazing example of the limits of our perception. Like this experience didn't fit into his matrix of understanding in any way, shape, or form, and therefore he denied its existence. And I think that whether it's conscious or otherwise, we have these processing systems that allow information to come in through certain slots. And as we dissolve those slots to make them expand or bigger, then we have the ability to receive information that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to access. Lisa says our higher consciousness. Yes, I mean, that's what, when I say higher consciousness, I tend to believe that all there is consciousness, and consciousness is creating these forms of energy and experience that we interpret as physical or non-physical or whatever. And again, working hypothesis, I'm not married to that, but it resonates for me. So, oh my God, Lisa, I can't believe you said this. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Lisa says there's actually a book about people talking to water and how it forms. The water turns into snowflake looking crystals. Okay, so I think you're talking about Dr. Emoto, who did all kinds of experiments with water and the way that it forms crystals, and it responds to frequency of thought and words such as love and peace or hate, and all these different forms that occur as a result. But it's so funny, Lisa, that you say that, because I have been taking action, making efforts, setting intentions to be talking to water. And like, I spend a lot of time in the bathtub. It's very healing for me. And I have started opening myself to connections with water. So Rosalind says, did it have a physical spongy feel to it, like it had depth? It definitely had depth. It had depth. I could move my hands through this energy. And it was there, and I could see it almost like a big blanket, big, thick, deep blanket, almost like, you would think of clouds, except it had form in it. Anyway, this is so much fun. I get really exhilarated by new discoveries and new perception, and like penetrating the veil, whatever. And so this has been really exhilarating for me. And I thank you for taking this journey with me and thinking about how perception and reality might be connected or not. In any case, I have to run. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out all the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. And I think we get to be looking at seeing things anew. And I invite you to open your eyes to potentially a new world. So much love to you. Until next time.